expand that, unpin that. All right, I'm going to bring up the VS Code, and I'll show you the part that totally messed us up last time. It's really, the solution is fairly simple. So first I'm going to do a real quick review of what we did last time. So we've done all the Django, we have the app set up. If you have problems with that, I'll come around and fix it, but I think that most people are set up there. So we opened it up here, and then we went to settings.py. So this is just a quick review of what we did. One of the things that we did is we changed the database, right, to Postgres. The default is SQLite. If you're ever going into production, you probably don't want SQLite. It's not powerful enough. It has some severe limitations, basically. But this is, Postgres is a fully powered, really major database. It's free. It's downloadable anywhere. We did, and some things could be different on your own laptop. If you have more than one version, like I do of my home laptop, I have 11 and 10 of the server, you may have to list the port. Right? My port is, and we're just using the default port. But you might have to actually list the port. I'll show you where that is in a moment. Password is important, yeah.
Steve, can you maybe turn the lights maybe one shade darker? It's kind of hard to see, like the.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, maybe turn your screen.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
What?
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, I can. I can zoom in for sure.
That's better.
That's better. And then zoom.
Yeah,
I forget. Yeah, it should work. It should just work. I don't know why yours doesn't just work. 90% of the time when you install it, it just works. It's fine. I've never really had trouble installing it, but some people have that. And I don't know for sure what that is. Is that more readable? Is that good enough for everybody, even in the back? Chaos there. All right, so we did this. One of the problems that we had is that there was no, we couldn't download that. And I figured out the problem, and I'll help you download it in a moment. Right? It's really easy. It took me 2 hours to figure it out, but it's really easy.
Thank you for your investment.
So the other thing that we did in the settings, so before we do that, I'll finish the review, is that you need to register your app under installed apps. You can actually do it as Django Contrib Tech Review app, but it's just fine just to do Tech Review app or whatever you named it, right? This has to reflect the name of your app. And everything is case sensitive. As I said, I'm going to really regret having capitalized those letters, just because when I type, I'll forget to do that. If you don't register it as an app in your project, it won't find it, when you're trying to run things. So those are the two things that we did there. Once you've done those two things, you can actually ignore this file until close to the end of the quarter, when we'll add a couple of things for authentication. So that's the settings. The other thing we did was the URLs pie. And what we did is we redirected the URLs. Okay, so we added an import for include, and then we redirected the URLs to Tech Review app. So for our app, include techreview.urls. What that does is it directs it to use a URLs file in our app. And then for here, I did from Django URLs import path URL patterns equals square bracket, square bracket. If you don't put at least this much in here, the migrate won't work, which is not fatal because you can migrate it anytime. It needs the import and it needs the URL patterns equals and square brackets. Yeah.
Can you switch it to the previous page, please?
The other URLs?
Yeah.
So this is the URLs. It directs it to that URLs. So there's a project URLs. It directs it to the app URLs, which doesn't exist, by the way. You have to add.
I still don't see my app.
Yeah, I know. I think we need to add an app. Let's see. We need to get into the activity approach.
Like 77 minutes.
I mean, like this too, like something would be,
Right, and in the tech review, mine don't look like this.
So, one other thing I want to show, because this was the other part that we did, is we installed, we changed the PG admin, right? By running that script. Space, start app, and get your app in there. Actually, and if you do it, it should work. So what we have here, what we had to do, and I'm going to put in the password. We added a database. We added a tech review DB and then the Python Club DB, right? So I'm going to close that up. I'm not sure I re-added the Python Club. But if you want to add the databases, again, the database, you just right-click, create database, and I'm going to call it Python Club DB. You can call it what you want. And so you need to create these in here so that they're available. Everything else we're going to do is from within the Python, within the Django. It'll write the tables. It'll do all sorts of things. But the databases have to exist. The name and the case has to match exactly what you did here, right? So it has to be named exactly the same, including the case. And as I said last time, Postgres is, production-wise, not your best user, because it is the default admin. Yeah. So you add the URLs up here. You go to Tech Review app, right click on it, and add file, new file. and then name it urls.py, and it has to be all lowercase. All right, so we've got all of that set. Are we ready for the fix for last time? Now, if you were on Windows, you probably didn't have a problem, and it occurred to me why. Because it's pre-compiled on Windows. Here, we were downloading the uncompiled, and then it would compile it, but I remember a message that showed up last quarter that I ignored. It said that that wouldn't be available anymore. So what we have to do, first I have to get into the environment. So I am going to do CD, and then mine is a little different because I wrote, this time I made it in the thing, but I'm going to do a source bin activate. It needs to be activated. Okay. Yeah. No, you don't need to do it again. And mine is going to fail because I've already done it. But I'm going to show you the commands. So I'm going to do CD back to Tech Review Project. What?
I can't see you.
Sorry. So I'm in a little bit different folder. You probably have to do env01, source env01/bin/activate. Yeah. We need to activate the virtual service, right?
So what we're supposed to be having is source env01 bin/activate.
Yes. You want, see how it says env01 here? That means you're in the environment. And if you're not in the environment, this won't work. So. Did you get your app? So you probably need to do env01. Source with the. Aren't you already? You're already. So just go to CD. The name of your tech review project. All right. So then once you're back in there, this is the stuff that'll drive you nuts for a while, right? This little. You have to get your thing activated, then you have to change back to your directory, your project directory or whatever. Those things will drive you nuts for a while. But you'll get the hang of it because it's always the same. It's weird, even on Windows, basically you have to do a little bit of this command line stuff. So here is the command once you're you're activated, and you know you're activated because you have a little parent right in front of that, which tells you that the environment is active. I'm going to do pip install, and instead of psychopg2 by itself, I'm going to do dash binary. Now it should tell me mine's already installed, but it should let you do it. See, mine says it's already there. Basically, that's what my message says. But you should get a little install. I see one over there. This is the install we wanted last time. This is the driver. Yeah, you're on Windows. It should be. Don't do the binary. Just do it without. You did it without the binary.
And yeah, then it will fall.
Did you do it before?
After this.
If you've already done that, it's already done. It doesn't have to do it again. That's why it's giving you errors. You already worked. Yours is already working.
See, it's working?
Yes, I don't think. I don't think you need to install it. Yeah, so it's pip install PSY COPG2-binary. Yeah.
I thought I did that.
URL on a what? URL. It's a URL on an app here. Yeah, I got it. Got it? Yeah.
I could try to make it a little bit larger. Today seems even more chaotic than last time. I'm not sure why. Is that better? I can make it, I mean, I can make it as big as you want. It just gets so that it's hard to see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yet another one.
I got thinking about it. I'm gonna have to sit it for you for a moment. Do you have a question too?
Yeah.
I'm also thinking that I may in the future not export process. Well, I can do that. Full of dead spots.
Yeah.
You want me on
I have a friend that can do
anyone else? There are a couple people. It's gonna take a little while. All right. So this will also fail for me, but if you want to try it, and if it fails, I'm not going to troubleshoot everything because it doesn't have to happen now. But I'm going to say Python 3, not up there. I'm as bad as you guys at spelling. Manage Pi, and this is something you're going to do over and over again because almost everything we need to run is Python manage Pi, right? If you're on Windows, it's just Python without the 3. Otherwise, Python 3 manage Pi, and then what I'm going to say is migrate, and it's going to tell me that there's nothing to migrate. But for you, it should create some migrations. And if it doesn't, as I said, it's not crucial right now.
What is this telling it to do?
It's moving some pre-designed files into Postgres.
Oh.
So when I go to Postgres at this point, and I look at my Tech Review DB, there are, let's see, I'll make this bigger too. It moved in under, if you go down under Tech Review and go to schemas and then go to public and then go to tables, you'll see that it created a whole bunch of tables.
This one is created.
Yeah, these are tables that it has created and put into Postgres. I'm going to show you when we create our own files, it'll also add them. It's created a list to keep track of authorization groups, group permissions, authorization permissions, authorized user groups, sessions, migrations. It's got a whole bunch of, most of this is what you would call metadata about the database and about the app. We're going to add other tables later, which will be more related to the content of what we're doing. For the most part, although if you want to look at these, you can, they're, we're going to ignore them. They need to be there, though. Yeah. You didn't work? Yeah, well, you don't have anything to migrate.
Yeah.
I will look at it later. It doesn't have to happen now. There are several reasons why it might not happen. Yeah.
Give me errors when I try migrating. It's now saying that there's no module named Bingo.
You're probably not in the virtual machine, the BNB.
I am. Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Let me look. I don't want to spend too much time troubleshooting.
Yeah.
This migration can happen anytime. It doesn't have to happen right now. Yeah, I can't fix it. So it's going up there. This is there. So if it didn't show up in there, it's also possible. So this is supposed to be tech review. That one has change it to match.
I'm getting a bunch of weird.
Oh, okay. Are you in the right? Let's look at.
Yeah.
So it's under the project folder, and you have to have in the project folder, it's under the project folder.
Right.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
It's one level. Why is yours supposed to be? It's a fairly empty file. Yeah. Look at your table there.
So they have a file. There's 5. They're taking them to, so they're taking a little bit of trip down. So they're and try to, I mean, they'll do it because they're and you try to, you know, it's always the one.
No, I don't use it. Yeah.
The 8 is a special. And take her all the way back. And stops and you like that, truly like one other stop. And it's an airport shuttle. Oh, okay. So then you don't have to. I love her. It's only like $74. Right? You should rent it. It's just like so convenient. And then I get out yes. I'm not sure yet. I won't have to decide it.
I will work on
Pretty much have to review, coffee shop, whatever.
I want one, so
Trying to upload YouTube videos.
oh yeah, there's glasses.
She's in class asking questions.
I would steal her.
Everything.
But,
Yeah. No, I never done this.
Yeah, that's,
Not wearing.
the tables, if they're not there, we're not gonna panic about it right now. For one thing, it may well be that if you close out and come back, they'll be there. But if you got an error, so let me get back in here. This is why I think I shouldn't record the class session. I should just record the process beforehand. Yeah, but I mean, look at how much dead time there is here already in this video. All right, so a couple of things. If you have an error there, and the error will be at the end of it, then it won't go. And the error is probably a syntax error. There's a typo somewhere in your code. I will come help debug them in a minute, but it's not crucial to what we're doing next, and I'd rather do it and then come and debug. Although that error is likely to reappear, right? Because it just plain won't run if there are any typing errors. A couple of hints on the error. There's usually, so let's say I'm going to just delete this last bracket. And then I'm going to try to migrate again. It didn't give me the error. What? Oh, I didn't save it. I didn't save it. Thank you. That's another thing. So now when I migrate, it should give me an error. So it says an error on the Indo file processing, and it tells me that it was in URLs pi line 4. Okay, and so it tells me that there's an error there. Now, whoops, that's not what I want. Yeah, and it needs to go away. There we go. And then I need to save again. But there's a whole lot. It gives you the whole trace of everything that's going on. You can ignore most of that. The error is going to be at the very end. And it says that it's an unexpected end of file, which means that this wasn't closed, right? And then it tells you that it's in Tech Review app urls.py line 4. So it should give you some hint. If you didn't get any tables, it may be because there was an error there. It also sometimes, if there were no errors, then it often takes a refresh or a reload of the page.
Yeah.
But again, having these patterns here, the files here right now is not crucial. What was your here? You've got very bottom. Database Tech Review DB is 96. Is it named when you open it up? So, we have
It goes from 0 to everything's on fire. Yeah, there's no. I'm lucky. Yes. It's Darren, yeah, but it still has 4 burners. I have one of those in my old apartment. Yeah, they're, it works, and you know, when you, I think the whole turkey. Really? Oh, it doesn't fit? Oh, I think you turn it. And I didn't have to get one of those. It's like it's smaller. Yeah, no, gotta get these done. Yeah, I do have a smaller, like, I don't put a 30-pound turkey in my wire, but it will hold. Yeah, so.
I'm wondering if, like, I'm all set up.
More chapters.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good, some of it, it's just a lot of, yeah, a lot of, some of them I did, yeah. Just like a lot of music. I wish I could have this busy website so much other stuff.
Dropped off and states just no longer enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Donate to us, like, your food is. Yeah, yeah. We don't want it, they don't want it. Yeah.
I think it's that does actually put this on the file. Yeah, because it's not really affecting anything, it just looks like it's annoying.
I need it.
It looks like there's an error there that I should be concerned about.
What year this is?
That's fine.
Is it wasted?
All right. So this has been fun. This is wasn't what I had planned on spending all this time on, but all right. So I had errors there, and I fixed it. One of the things that I do want to spend some time on in the not too distant future is troubleshooting, because obviously I can't get to everybody fast enough. Class is too big. As I said, typically it gives you an error here, and you can look at that. The most typical errors are difference in case. If you capitalized it in one place and lowercase somewhere else, as far as Python's concerned, they have no relation to each other at all. They're different words, they're different commands, it doesn't know what they mean. They have to have exactly the same case. Spelling and typing errors typically are the other big error. It is rare that I find logic errors, so that they do happen. The other thing is, as you've probably seen, there's a lot of different places where we have to put things. And if you miss one of those places, you may have errors also. So we did the settings, we did the URLs. As I said, the migrate stuff can happen later, although if it's based on an error, that error will have to be corrected before the other part runs too. Let me show you the other part where I was going to do the first view, and then we will get going. Nice thing about these setup things is they only have to be done once. We don't have to install PsychoPG again. We don't have to do the install, create the virtual environment again. You can have as many projects as you want. Those things are done now. The installing Django, all of that's done. Don't have to redo it. You can have 1,000 projects and you don't have to redo it.
What were we actually doing by installing the PsychoPG?
It is the driver for Postgres. Why they named it what they did, I don't know. One of the things you'll find if you dig into Python, you know where the name for Python came from? Monty Python.
Really?
Yes. The people that created the language were big Monty Python fans. And in the documentation, there are occasional Monty Python jokes.
Wow.
And their naming conventions are a bit bizarre at times. But the thing about any language, I mean, you just have to go with whatever they named it because that's what it's named, right? If you wanted to mess with, I think Python is open source. You can create libraries. I don't know if you can mess with the core. That would be a bit of a pain. But all right. So do you guys want to do the next thing, and then I can troubleshoot? Probably the next class will be all troubleshooting, but I'll help this. What I wanted to do is to create our first view. Right? We don't have any views. If we run this, there's nothing to show, right? So it's just all we've done is done the configuration in the setup. The least fun part, and also the part that is, as you can see, it has all sorts of issues if you that you can have, and I will get you there. I will get you clean and going on this. So we are going to go to views.py. Okay, and I am going to create a really simple view. The other thing I want to show you real quickly before I do this, which I hope will help, I'm going to go into Canvas real quickly. Go away. All right. I don't want to save that. So when we go into the assignment for the first view, so I'm going to go down to first view. I wanted to show you at the top of this, there is a little click that if you want, it will take you to the blog. And the blog basically walks through all of the steps. I'm not going to read through the blog, but it is there to give you a written view. There's also video from last quarter, although some of it suffers from the same malaise that this video is going to have. You know, lots of dead spots, lots of chaos. You know, that's why I'm thinking maybe I'll just do them in my office, show you how it works. These are the steps that we're going to have to do for this. We're going to create the view. We're going to register the view in our new URLs pie. We're going to create a templates directory, because you have to have a templates directory for your templates. Remember, templates are the HTML. We're going to create a base HTML file, except I'm just going to give it to you. It's a pain to create from scratch. It's the container for all of your includes, basically. We're going to create a text app subdirectory in the templates directory. And then we're going to create an index HTML template, and then we'll try to run the server. When you run the server, again, if there are any errors, that's when they'll show up. But if not, you can look at it. And this is going to be a really simple view. It's going to say hello. This is our tech app or whatever. So, and again, the code that I'm going to do is mostly in here, including the whole base HTML. But there's also in the pages. So if we go back here, pages, there's one that has the base HTML file. So we can copy and paste this. You might notice, I probably need to do it, it has the Bootstrap links in it so that we have some minimal CSS. You don't have to have Bootstrap. I mean, but our pages would be really, they're not going to be very pretty, and they'd be really ugly without some CSS. Okay, so those are the things, and now I'm going to do them. So we're in the views, and our views are basically going to be just a method, a function, right? There are two ways to make views. We're going to use functions because I think it's more intuitive, and also because class views, because you can make them out of classes too. Class views have a few limitations. They've just added them recently, and they have some limitations. But if you want to look at the documentation, you can see what they do. But I'm going to just create a function. I'm going to give it a name, and the name is the name. It actually really, at this point, for index, it matters. Index is the starting place, right? If you have a patch or anything, it assumes that index is your starting file. You can set it to be something else, but index is generally assumed. So we're going to say that this is our function for index. It is, yes, because you don't have an app. We'll get you there. So I'm going to add request. Now, if you know how websites work, you have a web server. That's what our, down here, our VEND, END01 is. It's a local stub that's pretending to be a web server. But you could hook this, as I said, I hope we can do this at the end of the quarter, hook it to Apache. And then it would be served to the world. So the request is the request from the browser. Wherever it is in the world, the browser says, clicks a link that says, I want to see a page. That request is passed to here through the web browser, the web server, through Apache, or in our case, it's just local through England. This actually contains a lot of information. It contains the IP addresses requesting, the usernames, if there are those, and other things that are involved. But you need to pass it the request. All of our things will have the request. Okay, and then we are, in this case, all we're going to do is we will render, well, we need to return. We're going to return render, parentheses, the request, comma, and then the HTML pages, which are going to be tech, I guess it'll be tech review app. It is. And then I'm going to call it index.
So it's the app name here?
Yeah, it's the app name. Although we're going to add, so again, we're using defaults. And so by default, Django expects there to be a folder which we haven't made yet called templates. And inside that folder, it expects a subfolder with the same name as your tech, as your app. All right, so that is the default. If you want to put them elsewhere, you can, but then you have to go into the settings file and change the defaults. We're not going to change the defaults. We've had enough trouble with the settings file. Yeah.
Is that the right slash?
Probably not. I keep moving between Windows and Linux and Macs. Yeah. This is a good question. I don't know. I'll have to look at my Windows files. I think even on the Windows files it does it this way.
Yeah, it does.
This is the whole view. Later we'll do views that actually do something. All this view is doing is directing the requester to the web page. That's all it's doing. Right? It's very simple. Later we'll do calculations and we'll get data from the database and we'll do other things. But right now, all it's doing is directing the request to the web page.
Render here.
Yes. Notice it's been imported up here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
And that's there by default. We'll actually have other imports as we go on. So the render, but what it's saying is to render this take this request and render this HTML and put it out to the requester, right? So if you were a browser far away, it would find this web page and throw it out to the browser that's requesting it, or if it can't find it, it would do a 404 error. Now this page doesn't exist yet, right? The web page, but we'll make it in a second. Before we make the web pages in the folders, and here's another thing about this. I'm doing this in a sequence, but the sequence doesn't matter a whole lot. They all have to be done before you run, but you can do it in whatever order you want. I'm going to do the URLs, and we need for every view, we need to have a path here. Index is the only view that's going to have an empty argument here. Everything else will do it'll be basically the name of the view. But index is a default, so we can just do an empty thing there. I'm going to do, we need to import something up here first real quickly. Then I'll finish that. I'm going to do from dot import views. You guys know what the dot is there? Yeah, just from the default home directory.
Does it need to have space on both sides? Like
it should have, yes. And I did that because I need to see my views. I'm going to do views, and I keep putting a period there, that's a comma. Views dot, and notice it sees index, right? And then I'm also, with index, this isn't so necessary, but I'm going to say name equals index. And I'm going to put a comma there. Even though it's only, this is a tuple.
What's line comment?
If you want to comment, it's with a pound sign. Pound sign. So I think I could comment right here. Oops. And then you can comment. I'm not sure if you can comment inside of this tuple, though. I'm just going to put that up there. Here's something that I haven't had you guys do much of, but it's actually a really good idea to comment a lot. Anytime, just to keep it in your own mind what you're doing. What this URL does, what URLs do, is they take when the request gets to the app, it finds, first of all, the project URL, directs it to this URL, and then it locates the view, which is the directory to the web page. This is something you can use instead of full URL path. If you name it, you can just use the name. We'll do that a lot later. With index, as I said, it doesn't really matter much. Does that make sense for the URL patterns?
Can you explain that one more time?
So when a request is coming through, it first goes to the project URLs, right? Remember we did an include. That include redirects it to the app URLs here. Here it's then it's directed to the view, and if you remember, our view told it where to find the web page. So there's sort of a path: project to app to view to web page.
So the three arguments in path, the first one is what?
This one will be more obvious later, but it's usually the same. It's usually like the name of the way it would be. I don't think this will work with index, but in the future, you would have like if the view is index, it would look like that. So when we do another view, it would be that plus views.index plus. Again, index is a default, so we don't have to do that. Okay, are we got the URL? For what it's worth, when I was learning Django, this part stumped me for weeks. And it's dead simple. The thing about a lot of this stuff is it's dead simple, but it just didn't make sense to me. And the explanations that I was reading didn't. And the internet, this has changed too. If you look on the internet, some of your things will have URL here instead of path. That's from version 1, and it doesn't work on version 2 something, which is what we are. I told you that Python 2 is incompatible with Python 3.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's 2 worlds out there of different Pythons. All right, so we've got that. Let's go to, this is for the Tech Review app, and this is in the file folder over here, right? So this is the folder for the app. What I'm going to do is just right-click on it, and I'm going to add a new folder. So we're adding a subfolder to the app directory. So Tech Review app, not the project, right, but the app. New folder. And that folder name is going to be templates. And it is essential that it be all lowercase and that it be spelled right. Again, this is a default. This is where Django expects to find your web pages. You don't have to go there, but if you don't go there, you have to redirect it in settings. Okay, so this is the default folder. I guess while we're here, so I'm going to click out of there so we have a templates folder. I'm going to right click on that new templates folder, and I'm actually going to add another new folder, which should be the same name as your app folder. This, to me, I think is really dumb, but it's the way they set it up. Yeah, so this is inside the templates folder. Yeah. And it has the same name as the app folder. The reason they do this, remember, a project can have many apps. So each app would have its own subfolder within templates. Does that make sense? And it knows which app to go to because the subfolder is named the same name as the app. That's the logic.
The illogical logic.
Yeah, but what happens and what confuses people is you have lots of folders with the same name. They're just at different levels. We already saw that with the project, right? There's an outer project folder, and there's an inner project folder. And then there's, now we have this app folder, and then we have that same name for a folder inside of the templates. But the logic of it, again, is that it looks for the templates for a given app. It looks for all the templates in the template folder, and it looks for the templates for a particular app in a subfolder with the same name as the app, right? Because again, a project could have many different apps. Ours aren't going to, but a project could have many different apps. You might have like a admin app for employees, an employee app, and you might have a different app for customers, and you might have a different app for human resources, all within the same structure. That's one of the things that you could do. All right, so we have those folders. Does that make sense? You guys are with me? All right, so at the template level, I'm going to add a file. So this is not in the subfolder yet. So I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to add a new file. And it's going to be called base.html. Now, you don't have to name it base.html, but you do have to remember what you named it. This is going to be our HTML file that everything will be put into as an include, right?
So this goes into the app folder.
This doesn't go into the app folder. This is at the same level as the templates folder, rather, right?
Oh, so the templates goes into the app folder?
It's in the templates folder.
It's in the templates folder, but not in the subfolder Tech Review app. That's it. It's in this is at the templates folder level, not the subfolder level. So in our templates, we have two things now. We have the subfolder Tech Review app, and we have the base HTML. For the base HTML, I am going to go here to this pages in Canvas, right? Or you could go to the blog, because the blog also has the base HTML file. Doesn't matter where you copy it because they're both the same.
What is it called in Pages on Canvas?
Base HTML under Pages. So if I go back to Pages, it's base HTML file.
Copy and paste that whole thing.
Yeah, everything inside of here, down to the bottom HTML. Now you could type this all out if you want. At one point I did, all right? So a couple of things, I'll just walk through this, and you should probably save things if you haven't. This is just a normal HTML file, right? Doc type HTML, HTML head. I have Python Club here, so I'm going to change that to tech review or whatever it is. And then we have the links to Bootstrap, right? And those are just to give us some minimal CSS capabilities. You can do the Bootstrap. You can make your own CSS. It's a little bit tricky with CSS. You have to create a static folder to put it in, which I can show you later. But this gives us, you know, all the Bootstrap CSS. How many have ever played with Bootstrap? Few of you. If you haven't, it's still, you're going to get a little bit of formatting anyway. Your pages will not be ugly. I mean, if we did this without CSS, these pages would be truly ugly. Which I've done before, but so that does say tech. It's weird. It's a mixture of tech reviews and Python Club. I'm going to put tech reviews here. Now, what I have here, which you could probably just delete if you want, is there's a nav bar, which basically creates a menu across the top. And I had nothing for that, so I put in dummy, but they could go away if you want. We will add stuff to the menu. The important part of all of this, so it's basically just HTML, right? With the some of it that doesn't look familiar is probably the Bootstrap classes and stuff. But this is the important part: block content into block content. All of the pages that we create will get stuffed into here, right? So they won't have HTML, they won't have end HTML, they won't have head, they won't have end head, they won't have body, they won't have end body. They'll just have the HTML that relates to directly to their content.
It's not important if there's a space or not between those two, right? But the one on the blog is different.
Oh, you mean what's different?
So I copied it from the blog, and that one has tech reviews. So
Oh, so you can change
but does it matter if there's a space between those two things?
between these?
Yep.
No, shouldn't. Just needs to have the begin and end block. Couple of things if you're getting more sophisticated, which we're not going to. You could have multiple base files if you wanted like multiple different looks. When we do the index, we will you'll extend one of these files. They have to have different names, right? But you can have multiple base pages if you want. So I'm going to save this. Other questions on this? The dummy stuff doesn't work very well, by the way, because this class is expecting a href thing. So they could go away if you want.
On that second tech reviews that you changed from Python.
I did change it. It's weird that it's a mix of Python Club and tech review.
Is it important to have no space between tech and reviews?
No, it isn't. Actually, this is just text. Okay. It can be whatever you want. Notice that this is a little bit of Python too. Notice that we're saying URL index. This is based on the name that we gave it. So if you click on this, this is sort of the base part of the menu. It will always go back to the index. And when we add stuff to the menu, they're going to look like this, right? It'll have a URL and it'll have the name of the file that we're looking for. So I'm going to save this. We have one more piece to this, and then I'll probably debug for an hour. Not mine, but yours. So let's in the tech review app now. I'm going to right click, new file. So this is tech review app in templates, right? The subfolder. I'm going to name this index.html. Couple of things about these. All right, so all of our files that we're going to include are going to go inside of here, in the tech review app inside of templates. it is absolutely just like everywhere else. This has to be spelled exactly the way you refer to it in the view. Right? So if we go back to the view, it says tech review app, which is our subfolder, and it says index HTML. This has a lowercase I. It has to have a lowercase I in there, right? Everything is case sensitive. So Python is easier than a lot of other languages, but it still is a programming language, and it is case sensitive, and it can drive you crazy. It has to be spelled right, which with index isn't too bad, but some of our other things will have longer names. Okay, so I'm going to do index from scratch, though, even though we could cut and paste it. First thing I'm going to do, the other thing I will say, once we get going, whenever you want a new web page, you can cut and paste like from index and just add stuff to it, right? Or you can type it again. I'm going to do a curly brace, %, 2 of them, and then I'm going to do extends base.html. And the base.html is in quotes. So what this is telling it is to use, right, that base HTML that we just did. And this is why you could use multiple base templates if you wanted. You could just extend a different file name. Does that make sense? The other thing that we need is we need another curly brace and the 2% signs, and we need to begin block, or is it begin? I think it's just block content. It's no begin. And while we're here, I'm going to do the end block as well. End block is one word. So this is sort of the structure of our, the thing. Basically, we're saying it extends base HTML. That means it will be inserted into that block area in that. And then what part is going to be inserted is inside of these block content things.
So it's just end block, not end block content.
It's just end block. I'm pretty I'm sure of that. I'm not looking back, but I'm sure of that. So inside of here, we can do whatever we want. Later, we will do things where we make a table and load the data and do other things. But right now, we're just going to basically say hello. So I'm going to do like H2. I'm doing an H2 because there's an H1 level heading in the base. And I'm just going to say tech review. Actually, we've got this all over the place. You probably want a better heading. And then I'm going to do just a paragraph and say, welcome to the site that reviews everything tech. And then I am going to do another paragraph that just says under construction. And you could do whatever you want in terms of, so I mean, you could put whatever you want in here in terms of HTML for the section. And you can make it as complex as you want. You could have divs and whatever. I'm just making it simple. You should save this. And then I'm going to show you this when it works, and then I'm going to troubleshoot, because if you had any troubles anywhere else, it won't work. You guys got it? All makes sense? So a couple of things that I'll talk about. Almost everything we do from now on will follow this pattern. We will create a view. We will register the view in the URL. We will create a template for it. We may add a link to it in the base HTML. So almost everything we do from now on will be basically those 4 steps over and over again. But there will be, there'll be the views will be more interesting. So let's try, and again, I'm aware that a lot of these will fail, but I'm going down to my command line. I'm going to do a quick clear. The reason I'm doing that is just to get it up a little higher. And I think I'll also try to expand that up. Okay. You guys can see that okay? So what I'm going to do is Python 3, manage Pi, run server. Okay, so if there's any error in your files, it will show up now. If there are no errors, you should get something like this. So it's Django version 2.2. Yeah, so it's Django. Starting development server. And this is your website address within the development server. You'd have a different one if you were in Apache. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So a couple of things. If there are any errors, that's what you're going to get as an error message, not this. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here. I'm going to make a new web page. Let me expand. That doesn't expand the address, so I'm going to do http://127-0 or .0.0.1:8000/techapp/. Did I do it? Yeah, that's because I don't call it tech app. It's tech review app. And that's what I get. Whoa, cool.
I get a lot better CSS.
You get better CSS?
Me too.
I'll be there in a second. Yeah.
You go back to your URL.
Yeah. To the URLs one?
On the requirements for the assignments, you asked us to do a url.py inside of the club directory, so inside of the
Right,
tech
right.
review app.
Just like this one. This is inside the tech review app. Right?
Here, it just said URL, singular.
It should be S.
Okay,
If I said URL singular, it should be URLs.
perfect. I wasn't sure if it's the one that's already there, if it should create a new one in singular.
Notice my error when I first ran. You might have forgot the import. I don't know. Yeah. How many were? That's not many. Yay. All right.
How did you open the webpage?
What?
How did you open the webpage?
So I went to the browser.
And it doesn't matter if it's Chrome or Firefox.
It doesn't matter Chrome or Firefox. What matters is the address. It's http://127.0.0.1:8000/ whatever you named your app, and then slash again.
Yeah, no, I wasn't there.
All right, so let me do one more thing, and then I'll come around and
Over here, slash.
troubleshoot for the rest of the class. And we will need a minute to get you set up, I think. And Jill too. To close the server, if you do Control-C, it stops the server, which you probably want to do before you quit. And then the last thing I was going to do is just paste this into GitHub. Why doesn't it have me signed in? Oh, you know what? I think it's because I killed my other server. I had to rebuild this all. All right, so I am going to go to repositories. Tech Review Project was the current one. And then I'm going to, the easiest way for me, so I'm going to upload files. I'm going to go into my Django files. I'm going to get the Tech Review Project, and I'm just going to drag the whole thing there. And this is what I would suggest each time. Just drag the whole folder. Okay, and then, or you can use the command line if you prefer. And then I'm going to give it a commit name. So I'll call it view commit. I don't think I have to have, and I'm going to commit the changes. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do real quickly while it's processing. So basically, it's just commit the whole thing. I think I have a new version of this now, which I might have to. It has the URLs. It has all of that there. I have the names were slightly different between what I did last time and this time. So I have two of these. Wonder if I can delete that commit. All right, so I'm going to stop the video, and I'm going to come around.
Yeah.